In this video, I'm going to talk about why I'm glad I went dead broke and why it was the best thing that ever happened to me, and also why I'm glad my parents did not give me a cent or help me out when I was at my rock bottom, the secrets the 1% use when telling their personal story that no one else does, and an announcement about my 6th mixtape that you don't want to miss. Hey, it's Peter Voogd, author of the best-selling book, 6 Months to Six Figures, and welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Lifestyle Podcast, where we help you build a life and a business on your terms. And this episode is long overdue. I've been talking about it behind the scenes for quite some time. How I created my personal story has been a game changer for our brand, for the books, for the mixtapes and everything else. And I want to share with you some of the tactics that I've used, that I've studied, that have been proven to get people really, not just results, but get people a compelling raving fan base and a tribe. And everybody has a story. Everybody on the planet has a story. Some are worth reading. Some could make movies, right? Some are obviously turning into movies. Some would bore the hell out of people. But if you're alive, it's irrelevant what's happened up to this point if your story isn't what you want, because it's not finished, right? Everybody can get better at creating and sustaining their story. Almost all of us will experience some type of adversity, right? Most of us will go through some tough times. Maybe you're going through that right now. Realize that your toughest times are your greatest inspiration for other people. Humans have a remarkable capacity to bounce back after problems. Think about it. Your mental toughness, your strength has came from overcoming tough times. If you're going through a tough time now, my question is, if you get through that, will you be stronger as a human being? Will you have a sharpened perspective? The answer is always yes. Even more impressively, we all have the potential to get better at resilience and bouncing back. So your story isn't about you. And we're going to dive into how to not just tell your personal story, but the importance of it and some tips that I've learned the last 15 years, because I used to be horrible at telling my story. And it wasn't resonating with people because I was leaving out important parts that I was embarrassed about. But when I started realizing it wasn't about me, the whole game changed. And by the way, thank you for subscribing. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, on iTunes, on podcasts, whatever it is, I appreciate you for subscribing. If you've enjoyed our content, smash that like button or make sure you subscribe. For you guys that have shared, I really appreciate it. We really take pride in creating the most innovative, relevant, comprehensive, and tactical content out because we value your time. One of the reasons I started this podcast and started these videos was there were so many videos that were 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. There was a podcast that was 2 hours long. We don't have time to watch 2-hour podcasts or listen to 2-hour podcasts for 6 minutes of actual content that you can use, right? So we wanted to make 10, 15, 20-minute podcasts for the busy entrepreneur that values time, money, their family, and things like that. So thank you. Please subscribe. Hit that like button if you agree. Also, share where you're watching or calling or listening from. I love to know where my audience is. So comment below where you're watching and listening from. So what's your story? Think about it. What's your story? What risks or challenges do you need to overcome maybe for it to be more compelling? What are a couple events in your life that have really made an impact on you and shaped who you are today? And once again, your story isn't about you. It's about inspiring and helping others and creating a legacy with what you've gone through. It's so easy to give up when you make something just about you. Somebody said to me at one of our masterminds about a year ago, I'm scared to be on camera. I'm nervous. I don't like how I look. I don't feel like I'm good at this. And I started thinking about it. I told him, you're talking about you too much. It's not about you. Being on camera is not about you. It's about the people you're inspiring and the people that need you because you're the rock for the people around you. And if you're a little bit ahead of somebody in life, they can be inspired by you. So you have to get over yourself, right? For me, I don't care how, I didn't feel like doing this video, but I'm so passionate that I know it's not about me. It's if someone gets one thing from this video, I've done my job. How dare me to base it on my feelings and not do the video because I don't feel like it? That's not fair to the people that need this, right? So through your story, I'm going to give you a couple tips on how to really tell a compelling story. But you need to think about what your story is up to this point. Everybody has a story. What's yours? Think about it. Is it something other people would want to listen to? Is there triumph? Is there super big challenges that you didn't let consume you and you actually got past them, right? In your story, there's certain things you want to include, and I'm going to share some tips. First thing is you have to figure out a way to turn your pain into purpose and turn your adversity into your advantage. People will relate more to your struggles than your successes. This was a absolute transformation for me. I was so embarrassed and I was so scared, and I don't know if it was my ego or my insecurities or I didn't want to be vulnerable. I don't know, but I never wanted to share any of my struggles. I didn't want to share that I went broke. I didn't want to share that I was scared and fearful of being an entrepreneur. I didn't want to share when I'm not motivated. And I realized that people relate more to some of the struggles I've gone through. My toughest time when I was dead broke and I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment that was $450 a month rent, and I was barely affording that, going under. I used all my savings. I didn't have money for fast food, and I just quit college. I was embarrassed to tell people I dropped out of college for 5 or 6 years because of society's viewpoint on people to drop out of college. I had all kinds of things I didn't want to share because I was embarrassed of what people thought. But when I took a deep breath and let that stuff out, it felt amazing. So you have to figure out how you can turn some of your toughest times into purpose and turn some of your adversity to an advantage. Share, get vulnerable, share the tough times, share the feelings you go through that are relatable, but also that are true and transparent, right? So when I started sharing, I didn't want to share that I went broke because I felt like that was embarrassing. But then I realized a lot of people go broke. And I realized later on, that was the defining moment in my life that gave me the hunger I have now, right? That's number one. Figure out what pain and adversities you've gone through. And I say to people, I ran a direct sales team we trained 7,000 or 8,000 people. And I'll tell you, a lot of the kids that had everything given to them, that were going to private schools, that had no challenges, their parents didn't want to put them in any tough situations. They got taken care of for everything money-wise, got the best schools, had the best resources. A lot of times they have no hunger. What kind of story is that when you have everything given to you? So you got to create your own tough times. You got to continue to push the envelope to find that. Now, think about the story of someone that has nothing given to them and they become successful. People love those stories, right? So number two is you have to say what's really on your mind and not what you think people want to hear. This is a big one. Say what's really on your mind and not something that you just know people want to hear. And sometimes it might rub people the wrong way, but you have to have a polarizing point of view that might offend some people, but it'll attract the right audience and they'll relate to you at such a deep level, they will be your raving fans for life. And you have to speak in such passion because it's so meaningful to you that it shifts people's emotional frequency. I want to shift people's emotional frequency. And I realized when I was talking from a script, when I was talking about something someone wanted me to talk about that I wasn't passionate about, I couldn't get like this. This is stuff I'm passionate about because people don't think they have a story to tell. Everybody has a story to tell. I don't care what you've gone through. And if you haven't gone through enough and you feel like your life's perfect and it's easy, what are you doing? You're going to be 60, 70, 80 like, man, my story was kind of boring. Everything just went smooth. I know you want peace of mind, but you got to go through challenges to get it. Number three, move people. Move people with your story and your message. I was speaking with Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank. We were on the same stage a couple years ago, and he was giving some advice to a couple of the other speakers. We were just kind of talking in a group, and he said, it's crazy. On TV, they can make you everything. They can make you taller, shorter, bigger, smaller. They can make you good looking. They can make you stylish. They can do everything, but they can't fix boring. And I thought about it. I was like, that's a good point. He goes, no matter what you do, just never be boring. And for me, I want to add to that, never be boring and never be like everybody else, right? Number 4 is keep your message simple. Don't try and be everything to everybody. Okay? Your message is not going to relate to everybody, right? But make sure you keep it simple, but you stay authentic and transparent, right? Let me give you some tips on creating the story, but also on putting out content. You want to have a couple different levels of content or stories. You want behind the scenes stories, how you felt after an event, how you feel before you're on stage, how you felt quitting your job, behind the scenes, feelings, emotions, challenges, excitements, right? Then you want to give some tactics. Here's some tactics I learned from quitting my job and making my first 6 figures. Here's some tactics I learned from being overweight, being made fun of, to finally feeling like I was deserving and I was proud of my body. Here's some fears, and then here's some tactics. Share struggles and share successes, but most importantly, share the journey. Okay, share the journey. No one cares how you got to the destination if you don't articulate the journey emotionally, right? So that's number 5, is just be authentic and transparent, right? And in the story, you're going to find your voice. And when you find your voice, it's something, your story is something that if Oprah said, hey, you have 5 minutes to speak to the world, what do you want to tell them? Go. 5 minutes to share your legacy or share what you're all about. You could share it like this, right? It's something you can get on stage and just talk about for hours. I still see a lot of speakers that they won't let me ask specific questions, or they won't talk about anything except the 1 or 2 things they're passionate about, right? So you have to think about that. You don't want to know everything about everything. You want to be the best at what you feel like you're passionate about, okay? So finding your voice. Always include your values. When you share a story, people should know your values. And then a big thing is share myths and bust them. Anytime in your story you're sharing what you're all about, or your company brand, your company story, if you share what you used to believe, and when you stop believing that and you bust that and that was a myth, and you realize that was the myth and you realize it wasn't true, people will relate to that. So bust myths, right? So for me, I used to hate living in a small town. I wanted to live in a city so bad. My parents moved me and my brother from Oakland, California, which is the Bay Area by San Francisco, when we were 6, 7 years old. I would complain to my parents for years, asking them, why'd you move us from the city? I don't like this small town. I hate Oregon. I hate growing up in a super small town. I don't like anybody. Realizing now that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I used to get mad at my mom because I quit college, went up to start my business in the Seattle area. Some of you guys know the story. And I used up all my savings. I went broke. I felt like I had nothing. My back was against the wall. I was discouraged, depressed. I was at my lowest point in my life. And my mom would not help me out financially. She gave me something way more important, which is perspective. But she didn't give me what I felt like I needed, but I didn't need that at the time. So some of the things you're going through that you might think, oh, that's the toughest thing I've ever gone through. Looking back, those will be your biggest breakthroughs or your biggest aha moments, right? You'll never know how strong you are until being strong is the only option you have. And that's where I was at that point. So keep that in mind. I never wanted to share I went broke, but when I realized that people can relate, and you don't want to make things up, but when I realized that that's just who I am, I did go broke and that was part of my story. I shared it, right? Everybody has a story. And if you can get good at really painting pictures and sharing your toughest times, you're going to attract an amazing tribe that will ride or die for you. And your story can create all type of content for you if you pay attention, if you listen to what others ask you or what your industry is missing. So fast forward to 2014, I was studying as much as I could. Most of the things I talk about, the books that I've created, the journals, 6 months to 6 figures, my Achieving Autonomy journal, I was looking for it over here, I don't know where it is. My mixtapes, my books, right? Everything I've created was from something that I felt like was missing in my industry and something that really frustrated me or pissed me off, including your story too, what frustrates you about your industry. But I was studying all kinds of content, trying to figure out this whole branding thing, entrepreneur thing, success thing. I would listen to audiobooks, podcasts, I would buy courses, and nothing was really resonating with me. And I've been paying a lot of attention to what motivated people through direct sales. And we were able to go from last place and one of the worst cultures in our company to number one, breaking all kinds of records. I don't say that to brag, but humbly, but I started figuring out what motivates and moves people to real action, how to move people to take action. And the two main things I thought about that got me through the toughest times in my life were motivation and good music. And I saw this firsthand how it could change your mental state of mind, right? You guys know how you feel when you listen to good music or a good beat or a good sound. It takes you to a whole different place, right? And I saw that it could shift my mental state of mind. I love motivating people to think bigger, and I challenge them to challenge themselves, but to reach for new heights. Here's the deal. I realized that most motivation in our industry was fluffy, and there was such BS, and there were things, every audiobook I listened to was so monotone. That was really the game changer. One of the reasons I read my own audio, but it was so monotone and so boring. I was falling asleep, right? So I wanted to figure out a way. And this all came from me asking myself the tough questions. What does our industry need? What is my biggest strengths? What problem can I solve with my strengths that our industry needs? And I realized motivation and music do the same thing. They shift your emotional frequency and awareness. And my vision was to bring them together, that both of them would be able to motivate people at a deeper level than a simple podcast, a simple audiobook that's monotone, or a speech that someone's delivered 1,000 times, right? And I saw there was a gap that needed to be closed. There was a huge bridge between the old generation and the old school gurus and the young generation of millennials. And it was really tough to relate. There's a lot of people in my academy, a lot of people that I motivate and inspire that reach out to me that don't know who Tony Robbins is, right? It's crazy. You're like, what the heck? There's just such a gap. People are getting sick now of boring podcasts, and they're realizing how valuable their time is. They don't want to listen to 2-hour video to get 5 minutes of actual tactics. So I wanted to create something different, and that's where my mixtapes came from, right? So through your story, through paying attention, you can reinvent industries. You can create things that feel amazing to you, but no, it's not about you. It's about the people you're impacting. So I wanted to create something different. I wanted people to listen in their car, at the gym, while they're working out first thing in the morning. And I wanted to give them something that got them extremely inspired without fluff and gave them a real action plan and a huge competitive advantage. You see, music makes you feel good in the moment, but there's no motivation or tactics past the activity producing it. So music is great. It gets you through tough times, but it doesn't give you any information or any roadmap to actually become successful. So most people listen to music, they could be in the worst place, they feel better, but 2 minutes later, they're in the same place because there's no tactics. So I wanted to mix the two. I love motivation and I love music. So drawing from my experiences of my own life, I wanted to give my best content, my best insights, my best lessons and perspectives, and put it into a simple formula, which was my mixtapes. So if you guys have listened to all the mixtapes, there has been 5 of them. There's been Ambition is Priceless Part 1, Ambition is Priceless Part 2, Know Yourself Part 1, Know Yourself Part 2, and the Game Changers mixtape. Finally, you guys have been asking. The new mixtape is officially coming out very soon. I'm going to give you guys some free tracks, but somebody once told me, this is where this came from. Someone once told me back in 2012 when I was in direct sales, you hacked the system. And I was thinking, I don't know what that means. And they were saying you hacked the system. How you were able to, I was able to create a dynamic sales team that ran itself with 14 or 15 employees, with hundreds of salespeople, do millions in sales by working 15, 20 hours a week. And they would kick me out of the office. They didn't even want me there. My team took care of everything. And we were netting $300,000 or $400,000 at 23, 24 years old. And most people weren't doing that. Most people were losing money. So I realized I hacked the system, and there was reasons why I was able to build that. And of course, I want to share everything with you guys. But also, someone said it like a year and a half ago. They say, you've hacked entrepreneurship. How are you living a great lifestyle, impacting a lot of people while creating financial freedom for yourself and your family and reaching millions of people, making millions, but you have peace of mind and you don't You're not like these other guys that feel like they have to speak all the time. You're always gone. No, I have a son now, which is amazing. It's the best feeling in my life. Like, it gives me goosebumps. I had a son 3.5 weeks ago, and I promised myself I was going to be there for him. So they said, you hacked the system. You're doing it right. And it made me feel so good. But I often caught myself thinking about where that came from. Like, how did I end up where I am? How am I shooting this video about a mixtape I'm creating in my home office in San Diego while having such inspiration, a wife, son, financial freedom, get to travel. I'm speaking in Mexico, also in New York City and LA in the next month and a half, getting paid, just to let you guys know, $20,000 to speak. I actually raised my fee when my son was born. It was 15, and I'm just being transparent because there's no reason to hide stuff like everybody else. I was getting paid 15. So I got 17.5 once, but I was getting paid 15 grand to speak. And right when my son came, I said, I'm going to raise my fee 5,000 because if you're going to get me away from my family, if I'm going to be away from my son, you got to respect that. If not, whatever. Right? And I booked 3 speeches, which is great. So anyways, how do I go from a small town of 7,000 people? I had no dreams of making $1 million. In fact, it was so far-fetched, I would have bet money that I was never going to make 6 figures. The median income in my hometown was like 30 grand. And I was that kid that everyone would tell their parents not to hang out with, right? So how did I go from working construction and valeting cars and selling things on eBay to reaching millions of people and putting out these mixtapes? And it really was, I started sharing my story. I started getting around the right people, and I started really owning my truth, and I started to know myself. So that's what this mixtape's about. This project compiles stories, lessons, and strategies that I've learned in my lifetime. And some of them I've been I don't want to say scared, but I guess that's the right word. I've been a little vulnerable, not vulnerable enough to share. But the track list is below. There's 13 tracks, and I share everything on my mind of what I feel like took me from a small town kid to success, to dead broke, to 7 and 8 figures, maintaining my peace of mind, and staying true to who I am and my values. So I hope you guys enjoy it. You can download 2 free tracks at peterjvoogd.com/mixtape. You can check below. But I'm excited for you guys to experience this mixtape. And it's been a lifelong journey. All my aha moments and my breakthroughs are in this mixtape. My current take on the industry, my current take on entrepreneurship. There is a letter to my son in the mixtape. You can check out the track list below. It features Jaden Smith, Romeo Miller, Kevin Gates. There's a little bit of a snippet from Nipsey Hussle as well. But it's time. I'm challenging you. It's time for a reinvention. 2019 is almost up. It's time to go on a journey of self-discovery. It's time to make up for all the times in your life where you didn't give your all or where you cut corners. It's time to cut through all the BS and all the noise and focus on what's most important to you. I want to help you, and with so much content out there, with overwhelming amounts of information, I assure you listening to this mixtape will give you such a different perspective and such a competitive advantage, and will get you over your fears, your limitations, and really help you bet on yourself but have a roadmap more than any other information out there. And it's free on iTunes, it's on Spotify, it's going to be everywhere tomorrow. It's dropping October 18th. And I believe whenever you're listening to this, it might already be live, but the link is below. You can check out the full mixtape. You can download 2 free tracks at peterjvoogd.com/mixtape. And let's change the way motivation is consumed. If you get inspired or moved, it would mean the world to me if you could spread the word. 6 mixtape is officially out. The Untold Story, and I'm excited to get your feedback. Let me know your favorite track below once you've listened to it. Thanks again for your support, for your love. I'm excited to hear your story soon, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Hey, what's up, guys? If you like this video, I think you'll really enjoy these videos right here. And also, please make sure you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button below. We have a lot of amazing content coming out. See you guys soon.